I'm John DeArmond with the Coquille Valley Sword Group.
And I'm Edward.
And today we're going over the application of Aisen Uchidome, harmonious timing, strike, and block. All right, so we'll begin by demonstrating it. I am Uchidachi, Edward is Shidachi, the good guy. All right. Good. Nice and simple, nice and easy. So, with Aisen Uchidome, we're learning a couple skills all at once, right? We discussed briefly in the kata video the skill of pressure binding, right? Of being able to really lock into somebody's pressure and bind using the flat of your sword against the flat of their sword, and how useful a skill this is. Now you might be saying, this is such a useful skill, why didn't Musashi ever mention it in any of its writings? And you're like, but he did, right? In your three parries, the first parry uses the skill if they're cutting into you, right? So let's say instead of Kiryotoshi, he's doing Kisegiri from the offhand side, right? Bump, I've got that same bind, bump, I come into him. What about the second parry? Second parry, he comes to cut. I'm using that same skill, bop, against his sword in this fashion before I clip his neck, right? Of course, it's the same bop from the other side. Nothing fancy, nothing special. In the last parry, don't have a shoto, so we're going to do ghetto style.
You can borrow the shorter one.
Nah. He comes to hit at me. And it is the same parry. Right? Right? It's the same interaction. Right? Now, you don't have to have this contact parry skill or contact bind skill to be able to do those parries. But if you have that skill in addition to the basic understanding of how the parries manipulate the opponent's force and position, it lets you have safety against them doing squirrely stuff, right? Sneaky stuff where they try and stuff your parry work, which is a common sort of counter to any kind of parry defense. However, the parry, or the bind here, is only just the very tip of the iceberg in terms of what this kata teaches. So there are two other really sneaky things that can happen in this exchange. The first one is where I outcut him by virtue of my geometry. What I mean is, as we're both up here, right, he's cutting up my head, I cut that Kisegiri. And by following that Kisegiri through, I displace his cut to the side, right? This is, if you're familiar with German fencing, how basically all of their work is built. It's built around this idea that coming at you, you come in like this. As your force comes together, their cut is displaced. You're in this sort of triangle of safety that you've created with your sword, and they're dead. Boop, right? We'll do this with the Fukuro Shinai so that you can really see it, but we're gonna wait. The ability to outcut your opponent by virtue of understanding how your swords interact, regardless of the angle that they cut from, is an incredibly powerful tool in your arsenal. And so it's really worth studying. Now, in Kyoho, the only place that we explore this is in this kata, in this one sort of application. So if you're really interested in kind of looking at this type of work more, check out some of the German longsword fencing, Lichtenauer's work, because it's the basis of their method, and so it's a lot easier to kind of get a more sophisticated look at it, right? The other thing that's happening here is an interesting kind of interaction that you see in a lot of modern kendo now. I'm not sure what the Japanese word for it is, but the Russians call it spitsya, which is basically to strike their sword out of the way as you are cutting them, right? So in very slow motion, pop, 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 I see his sword, and I create a wave, and then I finish my cut with my hips. So I segment my cut into three parts. The beginning part where I'm just launching the cut, I've got this clear line of sight, I'm cutting at him, and then all of a sudden his sword's coming at me, and we go, oh, good. And I'm thinking, crap, how do I respond to this? Am I gonna bind, I'm gonna roll, I'm gonna like try and pull into an ukadagashi underneath and cut him from there? What am I gonna do? I'm going to do this sort of slap parry work. And so I generate that wave, pop, and now my line is clear, and I go, okay, well, I'm going to cut. How am I going to cut? Exactly how it's done in the second half of the kata. In other words, after the bind. We've bind, we've pushed, we've relaxed, right? Hips, koshimi hanmi, right? My hips, wham, drive that sword, wham, down and through him. Because among the things that Aisen Uchidome is teaching us, right, is this idea that I can generate killing power from here, right? Enough to get the work done and to drop the dude. If you're following along with these videos and you already do tameshigiri, the test cutting, this is a good cut to practice, right? Out and through. This is going to tell you a lot about how you generate power. To be clear, if you try and use muscle to whip your hips around, like a lot of muscle, you're going to have a hard time with this. This is power by virtue of movement, not muscular strain, right? Of course, you have to use your muscles to move and to support your form. The trick is to use only enough, right? Because beyond that, you're just setting yourself up for injury. You're retarding your cut and making it coarse. So you want to be mindful that you're not trying to be Conan about this, right? Boom, right, exactly. Don't baseball bat the mat. So we have a lot going on here, right? We've got this contact bind. We've got this idea that I can relax my body a little bit to communicate options to him. We've got this idea of winning by virtue of cut angle. We've got this idea that we can cut a dude from this tiny, tiny distance, right? What happens, right? Let's say we come to that soft bind, and I slack and he pushes in. Whoop. I do the same work. It's just I go backwards instead of forwards. Same work completely. And I'll take him, right? Nothing special, nothing new. What we're studying here is in the name, Aisen. It's this harmonious timing. It's when our swords are coming in that same, what do we do in this kind of situation, right? Because up till now, our situations have been markedly one-sided. Either he's cutting at me and I'm responding to it, or I'm cutting at him and driving his position, right? Here, we cut at the same time, and we resolve it as such. Now, once we get into the Nito Seiho, the two-sword work, the relation changes. And we're almost always working in the same time together. He's attacking me, I'm attacking him, right? Because again, the Tachi Seiho, the longsword work, this is kindergarten, right? This isn't the super secret advanced method of Musashi and his man-killing art. This is how to hold the sword 101, right? Simple stuff. It's not until we get into the Nito Seiho that we start to see, okay, here is how we really interact with the person in the fight, and we're not just learning like basic concepts, right? Then the Kodachi Seiho comes along and it goes, okay, you've got those basic concepts, you've got this way you interact with the fight, here are more sophisticated ways of controlling your opponent, of really taking hold of their body and going at them. And then the bow work builds on that, of course. So let's go ahead and look at applications with Fukuro Shinai. Right? So I'll bet he just feed me attacks for right now. There's that bind, right? I bind, I push into him. If he starts to break like this, I can start to control his arms, especially from underneath, since he happens to be taller from me.
And I started out a little bit
striking, pushing, rolling behind the elbows, any kind of. It's very beneficial to play in this kind of way sometimes. Of course, we want to develop the idea that that is death, right? And that if I get hit by that, boom, that's it. That's why we don't do like point sparring challenges. Oh, you got a point. Oh, you got a point. It's you're dead. You're dead. You sit out. Next guy comes in, and you get to wait, right? So you want to play long. You got to be attentive, right? Right. But it's good to play. To get this sense of, right, how you can manipulate and control their body with contact with the sword, and how they can manipulate and control your body, so you start to feel where danger points in your architecture are. Oh, windscreen. Let's see if I can slip this on. So much static. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, this sense of playing on the person, of really grappling against their body with your sword, will educate you a lot. Again, just as much in how you shape your form as in how you don't want to shape your form, how your form can be broken, and those points where you should be like, oh, I don't want to go there, right? And you position differently and work, right? And that comes from practice, from doing it, from playing around. So yeah, have some fun. Make a game out of it. Don't be shy about getting your shinai on somebody and playing around. Unless you're using those kendo shinai, right? Be careful. They'll cut people up, pinch their skin and hair and face. They're vicious. There's a reason they wear armor, right? We don't wear armor because we're not bright or we're cheap or I don't know. Okay. Digression aside. So, yeah, he's going to feed me attack, right? And you cut through it, right? Right? And you cut through it. Displacing their work, even if you don't necessarily, if you can't step. Of course, if you can step, even though I know that my sword is going to displace his work, I will still step out of the way, because when I step, I'm not moving just for the sake of safety. In other words, I'm not coming here just because I want to get out of the way of the sword. It's part of it. It's part of it, right?
It's a benefit.
It's definitely part of the equation. Mostly I'm looking at changing my relation, boom, and making it hard for him to bring his weapons to bear on me so that I have the advantage of time and relation to him, right? So just because you can displace his sword doesn't mean, or displace his sword without moving, doesn't mean that that's how you should use the work, right? Sometimes, of course, you have no choice, and that's just like, I can't go anywhere. Boop! And you use a displacement like this to outcut him to protect yourself. But that's tactical considerations, right? So we've shown binds, we've shown the outcut. Up. Right? You can make these cuts, and I'm breaking them up a little bit so that you can see them, so they're not just whirls of shinai everywhere, right? But the idea that
Not the face.
even at a small distance, right, you can generate
Tons of power.
enough power to get the work done. If you understand how to use your hara, right? You understand how to use that core to work through the guy, right? Now, with open-handed work, this should be fairly simple to understand, right? What is it that Aisen Uchidome is teaching us? It's teaching us that if he's punching me and I'm punching him, don't just sit there and take it in the freaking face, right? Do something about it. Resolve the situation. How can you resolve the situation? Well, easy, right? You can meet him in a bind, and then if he tries to pull back, boom, you hit him in the short distance, right? You can beat him by superior geometry so that his attack is cammed off, but your attack, boom, drives into his body. You can, I totally lost my train of thought. Anyway, everything you can do with a sword, you can do with your hands, right? Even if it doesn't look the same, even if it's not like, hey, oh, no, right? Right, stab him, right? It's all the same, right? It's just, this is an example of this interaction, right? How does that interaction look in this situation with these actors, right? I think that's about it. I mean, it's another one of those that's really, really easy, but you got to play with it to understand it, right? You got to do the work and feel it in your body. You got to feel the resistance. You got to feel them fighting against you. You got to feel that moment where where in the bind, where you have them, right? Where you are bound. You feel that pressure of support all the way through your structure. And then you feel as their support just crumbles underneath and just breaks apart. Just as it's the same exact kind of feeling you get when you're doing a piece of joint work or when you're doing a throw, and it's you feel them strong, and then it's like they're
Pliable.
Yeah, their power dissipates. Their structure breaks, and all of a sudden you have complete control over them. It's the same feeling here. Whether you're going with this sort of Spezia, or whether you're going
Angles.
with superior cutting, right? Because in the beginning, right, of this cut, it feels like, oh my gosh, he's going to get me, and then it goes away, just and evaporates. Once you start to feel that, and you can apply it a bit, right? Because understanding a thing is there and being able to do it are two different things, right? But with practice, they become the same. Once you can do that, Then, if you make the effort to apply the work, it'll become part of you fairly quickly. And it doesn't really matter what work they're doing. If you're in the same time as them, right? You know, you could be grappling, same thing, right? You could be doing joint work, it's the same thing. You can be working on the ground, it's the same thing, right? It's not specific to sword work. It's not specific to this interaction. We can do the same thing from cuts from the side, or kiriage, rising cuts, or whatever. It's all the same, because we're not studying a position, we're studying an interaction. So, to study an interaction, you have to interact, right? So, find some poor schmuck to be your partner and play with them, right? Have fun. And as always, if you want to understand this work, you have to pick up a sword and go train.